Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. This is our early Braves trade deadline primer. We're going to start getting into some actual names. Once again, a lot of these guys are on Jim Bowden's list of 100 potential trade targets at the deadline. We talked about the biggest need. It's the bullpen. But let's start off with the rotation candidates. And once again, when I'm talking about these guys, you have to think about what is realistic for the Braves and who they have. So listen, Sonny Gray, maybe he's potentially made available by the Twins if they fall out of the race at the trade deadline. The Braves aren't getting a guy who's even on a rental that is a AL Cy Young candidate. It's just not happening. So you got to think about innings eaters, guys they can afford. So I'm not even going to talk about Sonny Gray. I'm not even going to talk about Marcus Stroman. He's having a great year. Would love to have him on the staff. It's not happening. We don't have the trade capital to make that happen. So some names that stick out to me, and stop me at any point, Alex, if you hear a guy that you like, are Lance Lynn.
Stop. Talk about him. I was just going to say he's the perfect Braves guy, right, for right now. Talk about him.
Well, yeah, I mean, Lynn is having an absolutely terrible year. He's owed $18 million the rest of this season. He has an $18 million club option for next year that almost certainly won't be picked up unless he turns it around. And I think, if you're the White Sox, they're still kind of in it, but they're 5.5 games back. They're kind of a lifeless organization. They need to sell, in my opinion, and especially if they fall any further back in the division. So these next 5-6 weeks will be you should keep a close eye on them because they have a ton of pieces that make sense, and Lance Lynn is one of them because he's having a terrible year. The Braves seem to just have that magic touch, whether it's pitching, whether it's hitting, whether it's like when they come here. I think a change of scenery could do him wonder. He's an ultimate competitor. He's been one of the best pitchers over the last 3 years. I don't think he's going to cost an arm and a leg because he's probably a rental with a club option for $18 million that's not going to be picked up. I think, that makes a lot of sense because if he has high upside, if you can get him at a reasonable price, it could make some sense for Atlanta.
Yeah, you said it. He's been terrible this year, and that's why it's perfect for Atlanta, who's just been known. They're kind of just a reclamation club. They come, generally speaking, it's never been, 100% success rate. But generally speaking, guys who struggle come to Atlanta and figure it out, whether it's the coaching staff, the analytics department, the clubhouse presence of just being in a area where you don't have to be relied on so heavily. Whereas maybe where you were supposed to be the guy in Atlanta, you're just a guy. You could just go out there, not worry about it, and just play your game. So it makes a lot of sense. He's not going to cost an arm and a leg, like you said. And somehow, some ways, people come to Atlanta and just, find themselves again.
Zach Greinke's another guy I think could be interesting. He's on the latter half of his career. Again, Greinke signed with the Royals because he likes the Royals. It's where he started his Hall of Fame career. He's approaching 3,000 strikeouts. But listen, he's a Hall of Famer with a ton of playoff experiences. He's definitely not what he once was, but hey, to eat innings and potentially pitch in a playoff game if need be, probably won't cost a lot. I think that's an interesting target. You can kind of say the same thing about Rich Hill, just in a lesser fashion. He's obviously not a Hall of Famer. More White Sox here. Lucas Giolito. I think if you're looking at the best possible starter the Braves could acquire, it's Lucas Giolito. Now, Dylan Cease is a guy a lot of people are going to be talking about. He's a Georgia boy. He's got 3 years of control. So this year and 2 more. He's an absolute Cy Young candidate coming into the year. He struggled a little bit, but he seems to be finding his footing. I don't see the White Sox trading Dylan Cease. There's no reason to. But even if they did, the Braves don't have realistically have the prospect capital, as I said, to get him. Lucas Giolito, on the other hand, having a good year. He's not quite what he once was. He's not going to be the ace of your staff. Braves don't need him to be the ace of your staff. He's on a 1-year deal. Seems like the White Sox are very interested in taking calls on him. That's one. If you're looking for the best possible pitcher that the Braves could afford and make some sense, I think Giolito is the guy. That is what I'd say. Everyone else, Eduardo Rodriguez would be awesome, but you just don't have the prospect capital to make that deal. Drew Smyly. Braves fans might not love hearing that name, but the reality of the situation is you got a guy who's on a contract year, pitched really well for the Cubs last year after, signing with him in free agency after his World Series campaign with the Braves was very underwhelming, and is pitching even better this year. And, he had some decent moments in the playoffs for that team, even though a lot of it was garbage time and long relief. But he's a veteran, has been in big playoff games, has pitched better of late. He's familiar with the organization, will not cost an arm and the leg. I think that's a name to watch out for. And listen, like I said, I don't think the Braves are desperate for starting pitching, but I do think some of these guys, make sense. And then you get into Justin Verlander, Marcus Stroman. Yeah, the Mets are going to trade us Justin Verlander or Max Scherzer. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Shohei Ohtani, I think that I would love Shohei Ohtani.
Let's talk about those guys. Let's talk about those guys just for a second, because I want to pick your brain. You're the baseball guy. You're very, very into baseball. Obviously, the Mets are so invested in this. It's the highest payroll ever. Sure, they're really underwhelming. I mean, disappointing is an understatement. But could you see that happening at all? Them selling any pieces? Let's say they're literally, I don't know what the wild card race looks like right now, but let's say they're, come the All-Star break, they're 5, 6, 7, 8 games out of the wild card race. What do you think?
I don't see it, because I think
just
both
pride.
of those guys could come back and be good pitchers. I think pride. I think they probably have in the back of their minds, hey, the Phillies made the playoffs with a hot stretch and then went to the World Series. I think that plays into it. I think they think they're better than the Phillies. They've owned the Phillies over the last 2 seasons. They probably don't see any reason why they can't make a similar run. I also think you have a guy like Steve Cohen, to where like the money doesn't really matter. So really, you're only trading Justin Verlander. I mean, sure, you could get prospects and stuff like that, but are they really interested in prospects? Because they can just go buy whoever they want. And even when they do have prospects, it doesn't seem like they know how to handle them. So yeah, I just think I don't think they're going to fall out of the race. Even if they do, even if they're 5 or 6 games back. I mean, look what happened with the Braves last year. Like, all those things have to be in the back of their mind, that they can come back and make a run. And then you throw into the fact that the only reason they'd really be throwing these guys away is because of money, which doesn't matter to your owner. I just don't see it. Like, unless you just think they're cooked. Like, if you think they're cooked and you can spend your money better elsewhere, they might do it. But I don't think they're cooked. I know they haven't pitched well, but I don't think they're cooked.
No shot. I don't think they're cooked at all either. I think they'll definitely experience some positive regression. On the flip side, Ohtani, a little bit of a different situation. I know the Angels are competing, and they are in a much better place this year than they were last year. And I guess it's kind of like a tryout, though I think Ohtani's gone no matter what the Angels do. You kind of have to be realistic as an organization and go, we're probably not going to get this guy back. We're probably not going to win the World Series. Do we sell him as a rental? Maybe
I think the Angels are not going to take. I don't think they're going to take any calls on him. Not because it's not. I just don't think they're a very smart organization. I think they still are delusional and think that, 1, they can compete, which they can't seriously compete, and 2, they think they can still re-sign Ohtani, which from everybody said, that's not
even. They're not even top 5.
Yeah, so they're not going to do it because they're in the race. And even if they were a little ways out of the race, I still think they wouldn't do it, because they think they have their best chance of re-signing him, and they have money. They do have money, is to keep him and hold on to him and convince him to stay. Coming up after the break, we are going to talk about some relief pitcher targets for the Braves at the trade deadline.